was expecting to be a little bit later. Anyway, it says in Romans, "For the invisible things of him since the creation of the world are clearly seen, being perceived through the things that are made." You know, when these were written, what was visible was limited. But what we have done since then, what science has done since then, has been amazing. And what it does, instead of revealing and illuminating Christ like it should have, it seems to have separated people from God. For instance, it says in Psalms 8:2, "When I perceive, when I consider the heavens, the work of your hands, the moon and the stars which you ordained." When David wrote this, he could see the moon and maybe 3,000-4,000 stars, and he was amazed. He was absolutely amazed at what God had done. How amazed would he be if today he knew there were something like 2 trillion galaxies, each with billions of stars and innumerable planets? He wouldn't be able to understand it. But yet we take it for granted. We don't even think about how God is behind this. And then it says in Hebrews that he is upholding all things by the word of his power. Now we sort of glance over that. Upholding means to sustain or maintain. But when you look at it carefully, it's really utterly amazing. Because we know now about atoms and electrons and neutrons and all the intricacies of the cell and of the atom, and how actually fantastic it is. For instance, the nucleus of an atom contains positive charges. And yet, positive charges, according to Coulomb's law of electricity, should repel each other. But they stay together in the core of an atom. If the core of the atom were the size of a basketball, the cloud of electrons surrounding that would be somewhere over Manitoba. There's that much distance between the electrons and the nucleus of an atom. If you took a tablespoon of positive charges and put a tablespoon at the North Pole, another tablespoon at the South Pole, it's estimated that it would take a force of 34,000 tons to keep them from flying off in other directions. The power of dissociation, or the power of repellence of positive charges is that great, and yet every atom has a number of them at the nucleus. We know that there's a power there because it's the dispersion of those atoms which creates atomic energy. And the bomb in Hiroshima, for instance, disintegrated only the weight of a third of a dime to cause all the destruction that it caused. But yet he holds it together by the word of his power. And then it says also in Psalm 139 that we are wonderfully and fearfully made.
Yes.
They wrote this from knowing that just how we function. Nothing else besides that. And yet today we know that we have 35 to 75 trillion cells in our body, many of which are so small that it would take 1,000 to cover the head of a pin. Yet each one has 20,000 proteins and a DNA that's 5 feet in length in it. We are wonderfully and fearfully made.
Yes.
So from what the Bible has said, from what they knew then, we now know that there's so much more underlying it. The truth that the Bible said in those statements is so much exemplified and amplified by what we have discovered. Then we have Christ, who said he did not look upon himself as selfish to call us brothers. The word that made this, the word that holds it all together, calls us his brothers and sisters, his brethren. So when he says that, in the sense that if we are all a family, families get together. Families commune with each other.
Yes.
Families correspond with each other. And when he says that do not hesitate from assembling yourselves together,
Yes.
when he says that in light of what we know about the other things that he said and done, we should really take it to heart.
Yes.
Because if there's more behind the other statements, there's also a lot more behind this one than might be obvious. We are brothers with Christ and sisters with Christ.
Yes.
What more could we possibly ask for?
Amen.
Just something to think about.
Wow. Amen.